So good morning, friends. Let us start on today's session. Uh, so far, as part of the course, we have covered starting from setting up the environment. We have covered HDFS, MapReduce, a little bit TORU, and then we have deep dive into Spark and Hive. Now we will get into Scoop. Okay. So the Scoop material is already in the course, so you can actually use this as a reference. And the topics which I'm covering as part of the Scoop is same as the CCA certification or any other certification which have Scoop in it. So if you prepare Scoop following material, if whatever certification you take, if it has Scoop in that, it will cover 100% of it, or 95, almost everything that is relevant for the certification and also relevant for the day-to-day job if you end up getting the job. So getting started, for this you need to have a MySQL database to practice. So if you use Cloudera Quickstart VM or CloudX Lab, the database is already available, and we have already seen several times in the past. And I hope you all know how to connect to the MySQL database in CloudX Lab. If not, let me know. I will demonstrate again. So you can okay, and when it comes to practicing, make sure you have user space in HDFS. If it is Quickstart VM, you have to have user Cloudera. If it is CloudX Lab, you need to have this one. Or anywhere there's a shared environment, you have to have a designated user for you in HDFS. So in CloudX Lab, this is my user ID. Okay. And when you try to create the JDBC URL, this is very important step. You have to run hostname -f to get the fully qualified name of the host on which MySQL is running. So if you are using Cloudera Quickstart VM, quickstart.cloudera is the fully qualified name. You can run this command and validate. If it is Hortonworks, I think hortonworkssandbox.com or Hortonworks Sandbox, that is the fully qualified name. So if you run this command, you will come to know. Okay. Most of the times we have to, means if the environment is properly configured, you have to use fully qualified names and use it to create the JDBC URL. What is JDBC URL and all, I will let you know in a moment. So typically people, means if you take any course, people only focus on import and export. They don't focus on other commands. So import and export are the most important commands, but if you want to develop a complete self-contained application, you need to have knowledge about other important commands such as list databases, list tables, etc. And also to validate whether your Scoop is able to connect to the JDBC, connect to the database using JDBC URL, you don't need to run Scoop import or export commands. You just run list databases. It will confirm whether you are able to connect to the database or not. So I will demonstrate you, and then I will explain how these are relevant. And then as we deep dive into the topics, I will explain the architecture, how Scoop is implemented and all those things. So here I'm connecting to the CloudX Lab. Okay, now I'm in the CloudX Lab. So if you want to get the MySQL hostname details in the CloudX Lab, so go here. Once you log in, if you go to my lab, go to MySQL credentials, this is the hostname you have to use. Okay, to copy to the MySQL database, either you can use Scoop user or you can use retail_db also. There is a database called retail_db also. You can use either of them. So first, let's validate how we can actually connect using MySQL command. So MySQL minus u IP address, and then sorry, minus u username. I have to give the username. So our username which we'll be using for demonstration is called retail underscore DBA, and then host is this one. Okay. So if you are interested in giving the certification, you might or might not be able to connect using MySQL. Okay, so to run MySQL command, you have to install a software called MySQL client. If you don't have client on this host, you will not be able to run MySQL command. Okay, so there are multiple ways to connect to the MySQL. One is using JDBC, and the other is installing MySQL client. So in our case, the gateway node which we are trying to connect, it has MySQL client. That's why it is able to connect to the MySQL server remotely. So we are trying to connect to 154 from 183. In Hortonworks Sandbox or Cloudera Quickstart, everything is in one host. MySQL database, Hadoop, all the Hadoop components are in one database. You can test this using -h and quickstart.cloudera or hotworks.sandbox, depending upon which sandbox you are using. But this is more relevant when they are remote. You have to have the MySQL client. Only then you will be able to connect remotely using MySQL command. So enter. Okay. So we have to log in using a password. -p will prompt for the password. And password is IT no special characters or anything. It's an open secret, so you can connect. So here you can run show databases, publish the databases. So this retail underscore DBA have access only to one database called retail underscore DB. The other one is information underscore schema, which is the data dictionary schema for MySQL. Okay. So here we will be connecting to retail underscore DB. Retail underscore DBA have complete permissions on retail underscore DB. Okay. Show tables. We have the tables already here. So you can preview the data. So I'm just validating that we have the environment ready for us. Okay. So data is there. Now exit. Now to confirm Scoop is installed on the client, you just run Scoop, I think -version to get the version of the Scoop. I think you just have to run Scoop. That's it. And it will give the version and other details. No. Scoop. Yeah, I think this is the one. Okay, so you can actually, so there is a very good document called Scoop User Guide. And again, you have to go to the relevant version. In our case, we'll be doing against 1.4.6. So I'm using 1.4.6 here. I'm searching for it. And this is the actual user guide. Very well organized. But there are some gaps in this. I will explain a little bit later. So to get the version, you just have to run scoop -version. So there is no space between. That is the problem. Or I think you can say scoop version -version or space version. I think now it is working. So you can see the scoop version 1.4.6. So scoop is installed here. We are able to connect to the MySQL. And the next thing is to connect to any remote database using any tool which can connect using JDBC. The databases JDBC jar file should be available to this tool which we are trying to use. So even before building the JDBC URL to connect to the database, first you need to make sure that there is a jar file in a proper place. So what is that proper place? So it varies from distribution to distribution, but in Hortonworks, user HDP. So this is the location where you need to have the MySQL connector jar file. Okay, if you don't have MySQL connector jar file in this location, then you have to pass at runtime. You have to pass in the class path. Typically, we have to add it to the libraries. Here, it is a soft link in this location, which is pointing to a more generic location in our file system. So this is soft link pointing to this location. Okay, if it is blinking or if it is red, sometimes this soft link might be there, but this underlying file might not be there. Okay, so if you are 100% sure the jar file is there, you have to validate this location also. Okay, so it is existing. So the soft link is accessible. So we have the library and the jar file in the proper directory. So if you try to connect to Oracle or DB2 or SQL Server, and the respective jar file has to be placed here. Okay. If it is Cloudera Quick Start VM or Hortonworks, the way you can figure it out is by running find command user HDP. In this case, I'm not admin, so I'm giving the directory where I have the subdirectories of scoop and all of our Hadoop installation. Okay, and then you can say name, give the directory name scoop, and type D. So we are trying to search for directory which has scoop in it. Okay, and then hit enter. It give all the directories where it has scoop. So in our Cloudera Quick Start VM and all, if you want to know the location where this is there, you have to use this find command. It's a very powerful command. But here we are not root. In your case, in Cloudera Quick Start VM or Hortonworks, you can, even though you log in as Cloudera, you will be able to sudo. So you can type like this, sudo find / so starting from the root directory. So it will go to the entire file system and it will try to search for the scoop directory. So in my case, as we are not administrators on this environment, as it is set up using Hortonworks, I am sure that Hortonworks installation base directory is this one. So I'm directly searching for this one. Okay. So you have to judge which one could be the one. If you want, you can go to each of this location and then run lsltr. If any of them have lib, then that is the one which we are interested in. Each one of these things have lib, but most likely we can. So we should use this one, this lib. Okay. So you will understand once you get into that. You will understand, and then you can actually do lsltr on that lib directory and get rest of the scoop related jar files, and you just have to place MySQL connector. If it didn't work, you have to try the other lib directory, but most likely you will be able to figure out in the first attempt itself. So first, you need to have scoop installed. Second, you should test the connectivity to MySQL. Third, you need to make sure that the MySQL connector is available. Then only you should start writing the scoop commands or scoop scripts, and that too you should not start with import or export. Okay, the way you should validate is by using either list databases, list tables, eval commands. Either one of these commands you can use and make sure that your JDBC URL is working. Okay. So now we will start with the list databases. Again, if you want to get the documentation, this is the index. You can click on the appropriate document appropriate chapter, and you can go there and you can actually get the more explanation about each of these commands. So list databases will just list the databases, and the output. Scoop is primarily developed based on MySQL. Scoop or MySQL, Hive, all these things are primarily developed keeping MySQL or Postgres in mind. Okay, if you are familiar with Oracle, Oracle is not a multi-tenant database until 12c. Okay, you have one Oracle installation, which means you have only one database. In MySQL, you will have a MySQL server installed, and you can have as many databases as you want. That is called as multi-tenancy. That is being implemented as part of the 12c, but MySQL it has from day one. So you can have as many databases as you want. So in MySQL or Postgres, when you say scoop list databases, it will list all the databases that are available. In case of Oracle, it will list the schemas. Okay, so these are the inconsistencies between one database technology to the other database technology and the documentation. Documentation primarily focuses on MySQL, and they don't explain any of these inconsistencies for different database technologies. So you need to try it out before coming to a conclusion on new type of database such as DB2, Oracle, or SQL Server. You have to test and validate before coming to any conclusion. You should not commit anything based on the documentation itself. You have to make sure you get the lab practice over there, and then you should understand what are the features, what are the issues, and all those things, and based on that only you should communicate. Okay, now we can run the scoop list databases. Okay, there is a question from Ramesh. That is correct. We need to download the jar files, and we need to place it in the lib. Okay, now I'm starting with the scoop list databases command. Either you can say scoop list hyphen databases, or you can say scoop space list hyphen databases, or scoop hyphen list hyphen databases. Both are aliases to each other. If you see in the documentation, they say scoop hyphen list hyphen database, but if you go to syntax, you can actually see that it both are same. Scoop space or scoop hyphen list, the subcommand, it means the same thing. Okay, so here scoop list databases, and if you look into the syntax, hyphen hyphen connect is the parameter which will control or which will take the JDBC URL. So we have to use hyphen hyphen connect. We have to build the JDBC URL. It looks like this for MySQL, JDBC MySQL. Here we have to use the okay, let me get it from here. Okay, and you have to use ec2.internal. This is the fully qualified name. We should not just use the host name itself. You have to use fully qualified name. If you run any if you run hostname -f on any of the EC2 instances, it will have ec2.internal. Okay, 3306, and then hit enter. It failed because we have to give the username and password. So I want to write it in multiple lines. So to make it in multiple line, you can give backslash at the end. So this is the Linux feature I have already covered earlier, so you might be familiar with this already. And then I want to give username. Username is retail underscore DBA. Again, I want to give only one argument per line. Password ITversity. Hit enter. You can see the databases. So whatever command we run to list the databases in MySQL, which is show databases, the same thing. Whatever is the output for that, we are seeing the same output here. Okay, and if you don't want to show the password like this, you can say, sorry, I think hyphen capital P. Yeah, hyphen hyphen capital P. then IT varsity, and then you can see the username and password. And also there is a third way of doing it because you cannot actually prompt for the password as part of the uh, running the application, and at the same time you cannot hard code also in many cases. In that scenario, you can use a password file to pass the password instead of instead of prompting for the password when running the application, or hard coding the password. You can actually create a password file and change the permission to read only to the owner who is trying to run the application, and then run the application. Rest of the folks will not be able to see the password. Okay, so and these are very important. Even though I'm just running scoop list databases uh, to validate that we are able to connect to the database using scoop, these commands will come handy while building the application. Okay, at times we might have to create the databases, we might have to access, check whether the database exists or not. All these things, for all these things, you need to be familiar with these commands. Okay, and then you have to write the wrapper program using the scripting language or programming language of your choice. So now we are able to, so everything is validated. We have checked scoop is installed. We have checked MySQL is there. We have checked JDBC jar file is there, and in the end we actually ran this command to make sure that scoop can connect to the database, okay, and list the databases. Now if you want to get the tables on it from a particular database, okay, what you have to do is, here you have to say list tables. Instead of list databases, you have to say list tables, and then you have to give the on top of host name and port number, you have to give the database name also. Okay, so in this case, the database name is retail_db. Only if you give the database name here, you will be able to list the tables. Otherwise, you will not be able to list the tables. Okay, so it's like switching to a database in MySQL and then running show tables command. So JDBC URL has to be updated if you want to run a query or list the tables, etc. You can see the tables that are available in retail_db database for this user, retail_dba, with this password. So now we are able to run the list tables command. Sometimes even though you see the tables, so sometimes even though you access the you see the databases, you might not be able to run queries against a table which you are intended to. For example, retail_dba is a DBA user on retail_db. If he is not a DBA user, if he is some other user, and if you have if the DBA want to give only selective access to that user, okay, in that case, you might try to run a query against the table on which grants are not given. So there, for example, there is a database called retail_db and a user called D Gadiraju, which is my name. So and then retail_dba, or root is the DBA. Okay, so root will create the database. So root creates the database, and then root create user. Okay, in this case, username is Digadraju, and database name, let's take the retail_db itself as the database name. So there is a database called retail_db and user called Digadraj. And then root did not make Digadraju as a DBA. Okay, so to grant everything, I think I have those instructions as part of the documentation here about how to create users and all. I think I have somewhere else. I will check it out later, or I will do a small workshop a little bit later on MySQL, so that you have a little bit of deeper understanding. Anyway, so we have the database retail_db and user Digadraju, and root only grant select on few of the tables that are part of retail underscore DB. For example, he only grant select on categories. So using scoop, you will be able to read the data from categories. But if you want to read the data from customers, even though customers is there in the retail underscore DB, logging in as D Gadraju, I will not be able to read data from customers or departments, etc. So the purpose of list tables command is to see what all permissions this user have. So if I log in as D Gadraju and see and run list tables, I will be seeing only categories. I will not be seeing all the other tables because grants are given only on categories to this user. So if I try to run any queries or any import commands on other tables, it will not work. Okay, so that's where this list tables command comes handy. As part of the scripting, also you can run this command, make sure the table is there, and then only do the scoop import. Those kinds of logic can be implemented using commands such as scoop list tables. Okay. Now the third command is eval command. Scoop eval. So scoop eval, you need to give the database name. I will explain the purpose of the eval once I demo it. Okay, and then username retail underscore DBA, password ITversity, and then query. Okay, I hit enter by accidentally, so it will fail. So in the query, I will say select stars from departments. Okay, so what this query is, you can run any valid query of underlying database. Okay, so here we are not using MapReduce or anything. It will just connect to the database using JDBC and run whatever query you are trying to run, as long as the user which you are trying to log in have permissions on to run that query, he will be able to execute. He can insert the data, he can update the data, he can delete the data. If he have permissions to create tables, he can create table, he can drop table. If there are functions or stored process that needs to be invoked, he can invoke the stored process also. Using -- query, you can do whatever the user can do on the database, which is being used to connect to the database, and hit enter. Now it will connect to the database, and it will list the records in that. So for example, even if again, eval is used for several purposes: to troubleshoot the issues why your import commands are failing, and make sure the permissions are there and all those things. And on top of that, the most important usage of eval command is updating the control tables. If you are from ETL background, you will understand this. So if you want, so typically the ETL batch jobs will run periodically. It might run once in a hour, once in a day, once in a week, or once in a month, depending upon the SLA of your requirement. So let's take the example of one day. So every day you will go to the source, get the data, get the delta from delta from the point where the load is, where the data is extracted last time. For example, let's say we started running this application on Sunday. That is for the first time. Could you please write a proper scoop script, including how to check if the given... It's not scoop script. You have to know the shell underlying programming language which you are trying to use. If you are using shell, you have to do it in shell. I will explain how to do that. I will not be able to write the script completely, but I will try to explain how to pass this output and then write a shell script around it. I will give some inputs over there, but I will not be able to write the complete script. Okay. So scoop is not, it's not a scoop is not a script. Scoop are commands. So Scala, yes, so in case of Scala, Scala is a programming language. Okay, you cannot use scoop in Scala. Okay, again, you was trying to compare um, some irrelevant things here. So what I'm trying to say is scoop is a command. It's not script, it's commands. You have bunch of commands in scoop which can perform certain tasks. If you have to automate, those commands has to be embedded as part of a scripting language or programming language which is supported. So scoop is supported. It means you can use shell scripting as long as you have a command line commands. So scoop have a bunch of commands, so you can embed it as part of the shell scripts. If you want, you can use Java. There are scoop based APIs in Java, so you can use Java programming language to run the scoop scripts. When it comes to Scala, Scala is a programming language. Okay, and as long as it has APIs to connect to the source database to get the data, you can use it. And Spark have those APIs. And when I cover data frames, I will talk about how to connect to the source database using Spark with Scala as programming language, and then how to get the data and store into HDFS. Okay, so don't scoop is not a script. Scoop is not a scripting language. Scoop is bunch of commands. That's it. Okay. So we will see. I will emphasize on important points which you need to understand. So let's first understand the relevance of the eval command. Okay. So if we start data integration on Sunday, on first day you will do the baseline. So you will try to copy the data till that point, and then when you run it second time on Monday, if the SLA is one day to get the data, you should only get the delta. You should not be able to get everything else. It's a common requirement in any of the ETL projects or data integration projects. So the way we do is we will have some control tables in database or control files in on file system. You can have it either in database or in a file system. So when we actually run on the second day, what we do is, as part of the application, before doing the ETL, the process will actually look up into the control table or control file to get the information till when the data is loaded, and then using that information, the subsequent delta loads will happen. Okay, so if you decide to store that information as part of the control tables, okay, and if you try to run build a scoop application to capture the delta, one of the ways to do so to retrieve the information from control tables is by using scoop eval. So the relevance of scoop eval is to get the information from the control tables and build the scoop command and run it in a automated fashion in the subsequent loads. So here, learning scoop is just 5 to 10% of your overall data integration module. It's purely based on the scripting skills or programming language skills or whatever other skills to build automated application. Okay, just learning scoop does not serve much purpose. Instead of hiring, if I have to build a data integration application, instead of hiring a person who have scoop skills, I will hire a shell scripting guy, and then I will teach him scoop, and he should be able to build the application easily, rather than hiring a guy who have scoop knowledge and then struggling to build the application. If you don't know shell scripting, then he will struggle quite a lot to build the self-contained application. Okay, so that is about list databases, list tables, and eval. Very, very important. They are as important as the import and export command, but a lot of people does not emphasize on those things. Okay, and here if you try to copy these commands directly, it will not work because there is no backslash at the end. In multi-line there needs to be backslash. Here the WordPress platform which I use to the plugin which I use to build the content, even though I gave the backslash, it removed the backslashes. I have to fix these things. But if you are trying these commands, just make sure that you add backslash after each line, otherwise it will fail, or type everything in one line. Okay, so next we will talk about import all tables. So import all tables is used to get data from source database uh, and by importing all the tables. Okay, in multi-tenant databases we can import all tables using single command. So in MySQL or Postgres, you can just give import all tables, and then you load the data in one shot. But import all tables, a lot of people get excited to know that, okay, we have import all tables, we can do in one shot. But that is not the case. It has so many limitations and it has very limited usage. But you should know how it works. So the limitations are, you cannot capture the delta using import all tables. So it takes, it limits, so that means that the usage is limited to baseline loads only. If you want to load everything in one shot and then build application or run the application to capture delta and load, you can use import all tables. And even when it comes to importing all tables for the baseline, so the way import all tables work is, it will import one table at a time. It does not try to import multiple tables in one shot. So, I will explain once we run the command. So, if you are trying to import a very large database which have many tables, and few of them are very large tables, few of them are small tables, you cannot change the parallelism for each of the table. You have to use a common parallelism, and that will bring down the performance significantly. So import all tables have very limited usage, but still you need to understand how it works. So I will show you, and I will also explain the challenges a little bit. So we already seen all these things, so we can move on to the next section. And this is how the import all tables command look like. So here, connect username and password are same. You don't need to worry much about it. Okay. Now we are understanding two different arguments. One is warehouse directory, and the other one is -m or -- num mappers. So for each and every command or control argument, there is the alias. So -m is alias for num mappers. If you want to give full argument, you have to say num mappers like this. Okay. Now we are trying to run it on the CloudX lab, so we cannot use this directly. So first, let me copy till here, and then let me get the IP address .ec2.internal 3306 retail underscore db, which is the database name, and then username retail underscore dba, password Cloudera, and the most important one is warehouse directory. So where is the documentation? So we have for importing data into HDFS, we need to give the path in HDFS, and there are two parameters to give the path. One is warehouse directory, and the other one is target directory. Okay, so target directory is typically used only for import command, and warehouse directory can be used either in import all tables command or import command. In both the cases, you can use warehouse directory. But target directory, it is only used in import, not in the import all tables. So what is the difference between the two? So when you give the warehouse directory, whatever directory you have mentioned, that will be working as a base directory. And then for each of the tables which we are trying to load, there will be a subdirectory created under that, and then data will be copied to that. If it is target directory, um, the directory itself will have the data. If it is warehouse directory, there will be a subdirectory with the table name. A new directory will be created by this command, and then data will be copied over there. So let us demonstrate warehouse directory, and we will see the target directory when we actually talk about import later. So for to give the path, first we need to make sure that there is the base directory. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I will modify that. That's thank you very much. So let me. Okay. And then warehouse directory. I like when people raise these issues. That means they're attentive. Okay, so I'm connecting to the lab again to make sure that I'm using the proper directory to as part of the warehouse directory. So Hadoop FS ls user finding 8634. So there is a scoop import directory. Let me see if there are anything over there. So there are directories already. So let me delete this location. Okay, now it is deleted. I'm going back here and giving the same path. So now it is running. If you see, it is going, it is trying to load one table at a time. I will explain the logic, how it works when I talk about import. But for now, just understand that we have 8 or 9 tables in our system, and it is loading one at a time. So already categories is done. Now it is going to the next table, customers. It might fail in the middle because we have given number of mappers as 4. If there is no primary key on any of the tables, it will fail. We will see. Okay. Now what you need to understand is whether, as we have given number of mappers as 4. Okay. So it is a default value. Even if you do not pass this one, it will take 4 only. So it will try to load each and every table with 4 threads. So if you go through our data, departments have only 6 records or 8 records, and orders have 65,000 records, and order items have 172,000 records. And here they are small tables in megabytes, but if you think about actual production systems, orders will be few gigabytes, departments will be few tens of them, order items will be again a few tens of gigabytes. Okay, for the small table like departments and orders, it is taking 4 threads, and even for the very large tables like orders and order items, they also take 4 threads. So performance wise, it will be very slow if you use import tables, because it has to load one table at a time. Okay, so now you can see that for one of the tables it failed. It has very limited capability to play with the number of mappers when it comes to import all tables. So in this case, it failed because there is a table called departments underscore no pk, which does not have primary key, and it failed because of that. So let me see, there is a parameter. Okay, I'm looking in the wrong command. Okay, import all tables, import all tables. Yeah, if you go here, so we already seen connect. We have understood password -p password, username, and then these are the control arguments. So here we will see what are these little bit later. For now, we have seen -m, which is number of mappers, warehouse directory, which is the directory into which tables have to be copied, the base directory, and then exclude tables. If you don't want to copy any of the tables, you can exclude that by using exclude tables, and auto reset to one mapper. So if there is no primary key on the table, we cannot use multiple mappers. I will explain why a little bit later. But for now, just understand that if you have to import a table with multiple threads, it has to have a primary key or unique key. As that departments underscore no pk does not have primary key, our import all tables failed. So there are two ways to address this issue. Either we can exclude the departments underscore no pk using exclude tables, or we can say auto reset to one mapper. So whenever there is no primary key, it will try to load with only one mapper. So we will try that. So here again, I am deleting the directory because already some of the tables are copied, some of the tables are not. We have to do this whenever it stops in the middle. Okay, and here I will be using auto reset to one mapper and hit enter. Now it will work. So the directory is deleted earlier. Now if you see, the directory will be created. And the tables are, so the first table is not loaded yet. Once it is loaded, you will see the directory. So now the tables are being copied. It has created the base directory, and for each table, there will be a directory. So warehouse directory means whatever path you have given will work as a base directory, and with the table name, there will be a subdirectory created. Whereas target directory, it will use this path itself as the directory into which data has to be copied, and you will see files directly in this directory. That's the difference between warehouse directory and target directory. We will see the example of target directory when we actually run import command. You cannot use target directory in import all tables because typically we will be importing multiple tables. Hence, we can only give the warehouse directory and give the base directory into which data needs to be copied. So it might be still running. Can you guys see the screen? I am sharing the screen. Whoever in the Hangout, I thought you guys are able to see the screen all the time because sorry for that. Can someone confirm? Shoot. Sorry for that. I will at least make sure you can see the screen now. I'm sharing the screen. Okay, I know the problem. I'm only